Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is episode one of the Really, Really Badly podcast. My name is Brandon, and you will meet Travis in a minute. And in this podcast, we just kind of take the time to have a discussion, even from 2,000 miles away. We've been best friends for a long time, and we just kind of talk about issues, ideas, concepts that we find interesting and important, particularly ones that might pertain to the millennial generation, because we're both millennials. We want to talk about stuff like this. So, this episode is entitled Why? Uh, it's it's we're kind of working off a video, a TED Talk-esque video by Simon Sinek, who's a really cool speaker and entrepreneur, and he did a video that's called How Great Leaders Inspire. It could also be called Start with Why. So I put a link in the description to that video if you'd like to watch that first before coming back here. This podcast kind of took place a long time ago, kind of before at this point, we were still kind of working out the technical issues. So there's a watermark in the video and some of the sounds a little off, but bear with us. We're still working it out. Either way, awesome discussion. Glad you guys are here. Let's get started. This is Really, Really Badly.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. All of our hundreds of listeners.
Oh, dear goodness. This is also the perfect thing because I've got like a cough right now. So,
Yeah, nice.
yeah, I guess we just jump right in here. First time, taking a question or an idea, concept straight from a Simon Sinek. Is that how you say his last name?
I have no
Sinek.
idea. I didn't.
I'm pretty
Didn't
sure.
try research.
Sinek, I think is how it's spelled.
Yeah, I don't know how else it could be spelled or pronounced.
Yes, a Simon Sinek TED Talk
Mhm.
called Start with Why, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, or like
Um,
I think they renamed it later, like How Great Leaders Inspire or something. But
yeah.
he didn't name it that. So
Basically, if you search on YouTube Simon Sinek Why, the 18-minute long TED Talk video is the one you want to listen to.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, super good.
if you haven't heard it yet, go listen to it. Mute Brandon and I and go listen to that because it'll give you context. And it's way more interesting than we're going to be. So it's probably a
Yeah.
better way to spend your 18 minutes than listening to us talk. Let's be real.
Yeah, to be honest, if you could feed your brain if you only have 20 minutes to feed your brain this morning, that's a better choice.
If you have like 50 minutes, do that first, then do this.
Yeah,
We're like
exactly.
in a cereal commercial when they're like part of this nutritional breakfast. Brandon and I are the cereal. Like we might be the looks and the reason you might kind of be here, but we're not the nutritional part of the breakfast. Like the orange juice, the egg, the
Yeah,
10 bananas that you have to
banana.
eat. Yeah. That's the TED Talk that you need to go listen to first.
Oh man, that's a
So-
good analogy.
Right. Okay, so, and that's probably
Still
how
need
most
those
of these are
Lucky
going to
Charms
be.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man.
so let's talk about our whys.
Yeah.
What's your why? What's your why for life in general? For, wanting to start maybe this podcast, just whatever, really open-ended.
Yeah. Well, I mean, huge question, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. And I guess watching the video and I mean, just to give background, unless no one did watch it, or unless people listening have not watched it, it's it's the idea that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, and we thought that was we just kind of talked about how that was kind of profound in how even just whether or not you're a salesman, why do you get out of bed? Why do you work hard
Mm-hmm.
at your job? Things like that. Um, and I guess the why, yeah, it'll be different for everyone, and it'll be different for um, different actions they want to take,
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So, so I guess where do we start? I guess, I mean, the reason why we want to do this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, right? It's because we enjoy having like purposeful, meaningful conversations, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's something that we've always enjoyed doing. And yeah, kind of learning from each other, you know? And I guess that's kind of what TED Talks is doing, right? It's taking people who have different perspectives and certain knowledges and things like that, and putting them together, just finding a way that we could share ideas, which I like. And I guess, I don't know, that's kind of what this idea feels like to me, is finding a way to get to a, learning from each other sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when I was thinking about this and why I wanted to talk, other than obviously us being like great friends and wanting to, just have our deeper conversations more often, one of the biggest moments of growth in my life was back my freshman year of college, and just the guys on my floor, there was just so much growth as far as like depth and deep conversations and I don't know, just like vulnerability. And the whole reason I think was, like just talking with people, having these like vulnerable, deep relationships. And, now that I'm post college, I think I've, over the last, year and a half, 2 years, kind of felt this like longing for something like that again. And I've felt pretty stagnant as far as like growth, deep growth like that. And so I think, just going along with what you said, like part of the reason I really want to do this, if it doesn't get huge, if it doesn't, if literally no one listens, like it'll be okay, because one of the reasons I want to do this is I believe that, deep relationships, deep conversations are a very, very worthwhile thing that you can invest in. And I want to see that kind of growth in my own life start up again. And I'm hoping that this can help that, actually taking time to think about these, different thoughts and ideas, and then discuss them with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that's
That's
part of
awesome. I agree, man. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, even just because I was like listening to the podcast again last night,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just thinking like, man, like when I first listened to it, I talked about it maybe with my brother, because I was home in Colorado at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about it with him for like maybe 2 minutes, and then I kind of, I don't know, I took away like the one phrase, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of took away that phrase, and that's great. Like that's kind of what TED, that's what people set out to do, is leave you with one phrase. But the fact that I was watching it again last night and like kind of, I don't know, taking notes and actually kind of re-engaging with the material, and maybe unpacking it a bit with you now, I was like, this is great. This is a good why for why we're doing this podcast, to kind of reopen that idea and to engage with it more. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I also really liked what he talks about when he talks about like being inspired, and how like, great leaders don't just hold a position of leadership, of power, but they actually lead. He says like, and he points out that one of the aspects of that is by inspiring people. And I know we talked about this a little bit last night when we were talking, just about things that inspire us and wanting to share those things and explore those things. I think that's kind of one of those, like you said before, like, what gets you out of bed in the morning, another way to phrase that is like, what inspires you to do what you're doing,
Yeah. One question I had, just thinking about this earlier, I guess it was last night I was thinking about this, is like, he's coming at it in that video from a real salesman point of view.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
people don't buy why you do, or what you do, they buy why you do it. And I don't know, I was thinking about my job, like, and you know, I work in a box office, so I am selling people tickets, but typically they know what they want when they call me.
Right.
You know, they're already like, my kid's in the show, you know, I need tickets to it, and it's not like I'm gonna, you know, I don't want to tell them about the 50 symphonies that we got coming up. Like they just want their stuff. So I wouldn't really consider myself a salesman, except for maybe when I'm in an interview situation, right? You know, then you're kind of selling yourself.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess my question is, like, how can you use this concept even when your job has nothing to do with sales? You know, yeah, like in the workplace. I don't know. I was kind of thinking about that.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts about that? Maybe?
I do a little bit, I think, because that was one that struck me too. Because yeah, he's obviously approaching this from a very, very marketing, business, sales, like angle. But at the end, he said something, and I'm gonna mess this up, but it was right at the end when he was talking about that curve or whatever, and with the early adopters, innovators, and that like gap that you have to kind of push past. And he said something right at the end that went something like, the people who know their why are going to be able to inspire others around them and find people, and they're going to have the ability to find people who inspire them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was kind of different, because, you know, the whole time in his talk he's talking about inspiring others, but at the very end he kind of touched on this idea of finding people that inspire you. And I think that is something that can be incredibly important, you know, finding those being able to see in other people something that was going to inspire you and help push you, and not just being focused on you inspiring other people, but having kind of this, you know, inflow outflow is kind of what it got me thinking about.
Interesting.
And I think that is something that has a lot of like relevance outside of, I guess, your work job or whatever, because if you can find people in your life, you know, that's going to be a lot more relational than it is going to be in your job, I think, or it can be at least.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and finding those people in your life to have those conversations that inspire, or see what they're doing and, you know, being a part of what they're doing, that will help you inspire. I mean, and just as like I mean, that's like super vague, but when I think about that, like that in my own life, you know, a lot of that is, I like to listen to some podcasts that inspire me a lot, and going out and being able to find those and find the ones that, you know, I've listened to some that it's like, meh, like that was all right, it was good, but like doesn't necessarily like get me going. I don't know if it's like adding a ton to my life or whatever. But then there's definitely ones that I've found that it's like, I love listening to this. Like after listening to this, I am just like stoked to go do something, to go talk about something or whatever. And so I think that's, you know, the reason why that is I think those people who have the ability to inspire, they have their very specific like why they're doing what they're doing. And I think that's something that can just kind of rub off, even if it's not necessarily like spoken directly, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you know your why you're doing what you're doing, I think you can get that across to people indirectly as well as directly, you know?
Yeah, like it'll flow. Like that's the whole idea, right? Is like center. Like everything kind of flows out. If you can find this kind of why, you know, it kind of flows out from there, and hopefully it'll touch people.
And whether that's exactly, and whether that's, you know, through you like literally telling people what it is that you believe and why, or whether it's just the way that you listen and talk and interact with people, you're going to draw and attract people to you that believe the same thing that you do. And that was kind of what he was talking about too, is you'll draw people to you who believe what you believe. You know, he said like the point of business is not to sell people something that they need, but it's to sell to people who believe what you believe, you know, or something like that. And anyway, I was going somewhere with that, I feel like, but
No, it's good, man. No, that's awesome. Yeah, because I understand his talk in like two different ways, and one of them is business for sure, you know, and then the other, as I was listening, was just yeah, kind of what you were talking about, just even just personally, you know, why do you do what you do, you know, why, what do you, yeah, kind of at your center, what is driving you, you know, why.
Yeah.
There's this awesome quote by Richard Rohr that I'm actually just pulling up now. My buddy is reading a book of his right now.
Hmm.
And it's just talking about identity and some other things like that. And how like a lot of people are kind of on the outside of their own lives. Like they kind of circle around the center, but they don't ever really get to it. I'm just trying to find this. Those who rush to artificially manufacture their own identity often end up with a hardened and overly defended edge. They are easily offended and are always ready to create a new identity when the current one lets them down.
Nice.
Interesting, eh? I know that might be a bit of a leap because we're just talking about a TED talk about selling or whatever. But to me, it was kind of like, I don't know, this, you know, if you don't have a center, if you don't have that identity kind of, you might not really know what you're doing, or you might kind of artificially manufacture an identity kind of.
Right.
That's what I took it to mean anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I was kind of building off that, or what I was going to say before is, you know, when I first listened to, the first time I remember listening to this Simon Sinek talk about finding your why, you know, of course, when you're done, you kind of think, okay, so what's my why? And that can be like a really weird question to ask, because he even says in the talk, he gives like those 3 circles, you know, starting from the middle going out, it's why, how, and what, I think were the 3. Or it was what and how. I forget the last 2. But anyway, he says like
what's the outside,
most people start with the outside and go inside because it's the most concrete to the, you know, to the least concrete, like the hardest to figure out. And I think it is one of those questions that's kind of weird. And what I liked about the end of his talk when he was talking about how people will draw people to them who believe the same thing they believe, I think if you're trying to figure out your own why, looking at the people who you are drawn to is a way to kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
Because because like the people who I'm drawn to are going to be most likely going to be people who believe the same thing that I believe, are going to be people who I, you know, find something alluring about, you know, inspiring about, or whatever. And, you know, when I think about that, like, I immediately think of my closest friends, like, you know, you, Landon, you know, Steve, like just the people in college, you know, our high school group of friends. And I mean, we talked a lot when we were hanging out. Like, I mean, like one of the things that struck me the most is sometimes we would all hang out and just talk, and that's all we would do. We would just like sit around, and we would just like somehow like a conversation would get started. You know, whatever game or movie we were watching would kind of just fall away, and we would just talk, and it was like the best thing ever. And I don't like, and I think that that's just one of those things that like I love deep conversations. I love the kind of vulnerability and just like wrestling through thoughts. And that's something that I've always been drawn to. And I think that has a big part, you know, if I were to, you know, have to start narrowing down my why, I think that's a huge, you know, component of it.
Yeah.
And I think it helps kind of to look at it that way. If you look at who are you drawn to, why are you drawn to them, probably has something to do with what motivates you and what gets you going.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and you can use that. you ask those questions of yourself, you know, why do I enjoy hanging with this person? Why did I find that time so fun as opposed to this time? You know, you kind of use that all as data to kind of point you, you know, it could be in a direction of like a career, or, you know, or just a new life chapter, or even just, this is how I want to spend my weekend. You know, I think so many people kind of fall into whatever, I don't know, whatever their friends are doing, or, you know, whatever the people at work say they're going to be doing after. They kind of think, oh, that's the norm. And I mean, I've got nothing against going out on a Saturday night, but I just found that I wasn't enjoying it very much. Um, and I kind of would look at, okay, I didn't enjoy that, but I did enjoy, you know, splitting a bottle of wine with my roommates and just chatting about, you know, what we think of the political situation right now, you know.
Right.
And yeah, and I was just like, yeah, well, I guess you kind of use that data, and it's like, well, it's not really what I was supposed to enjoy or whatever, yeah, you know, but it was what I did enjoy. So
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
that's
Yeah,
cool.
you kind of take that further and figure out what that means about you, you know,
Right.
and try to figure out your why. Yeah.
So let me ask then, I don't know, maybe to try to get things just a little more like concrete. Cause I think that there's tons of different aspects to whys, and you can have like different whys for different things, you know?
Yeah.
You know, why you do the job that you do, why you do the fun things that you do, why you have the relationships that you do. And they might be kind of intertwined, but they can definitely, I think, kind of morph a little bit. And I think it's one of those things that can also change depending on your time of life or the situation you're in or what your current goals are. But I'll ask, and I guess I kind of already asked this for you, but like, what's your why for, or maybe a different way of phrasing it is like, what do you hope to get out or accomplish with this podcast that we're doing? And then also talking about like just your personal life, what's your why, or what kind of, what drives you every day or in the morning or generally,
Oh,
if not every
jeez.
day. Sorry.
Just all that, eh?
Just all that. I don't know.
Yeah. Figure out your own soul in one sentence, please. No, I'm just kidding.
Or just what are your thoughts on it? You don't have to figure it out.
No,
I don't have it figured out.
I no, I appreciate the question actually. It's good, man. Just get right to it. I like it. I mean, okay, so podcast. My why for this podcast, to create something. Like I kind of I mean, as you know, I used to act quite a lot actually,
Yep.
you know, and I would, that's what my degree's in. And, you know, I would write shows, I would act, I would create sketches with my friends. I would do that a lot, but I don't know, life's kind of happened lately, you know, Vancouver's an expensive city, and I haven't really been doing much creating. Just to be like, yep, this is something that wasn't there before, and because of me and my friends, you know, or just because of me, it now exists. Just that art of creation. I really miss that. So yeah, when you were talking about, you know, maybe wanting to throw together a podcast, I'm like, man, I would love that.
Yeah.
It'd be an awesome opportunity to create something. And then kind of what I said already, my why, to make a connection with you, you know, to kind of keep this connection going, and and to hopefully connect with others, you know, whether it's just through listening, you know, through them listening to us, or through them, you know, writing us, or someone wanting to come on the show. All the podcasts I listen to are almost all interview style, and I love it. You know, I think it's so good just to hear someone's story and hear what they're passionate about, and hear their why, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I guess if I had to boil it down for the podcast, it would be one, to create something, and two, to form connection. So
Nice.
yeah, that would be.
I like
why
that.
don't you? What's your podcast?
Well, one, I just want to say I do love the whole thing about, you know, creating something. I had an interesting conversation with my friend Drew the other day about how, you know, it's fun to entertain ourselves, to kind of, you know, consume the things that are out there, you know, I mean, whatever it is you're into, right? Like listening to other podcasts, you know, playing video games, you know, watching movies, reading a book, and all those things are great, and you can gain so much from them. But I think, you know, with this conversation I was having with him, like he had this just like, I want to, you know, contribute in my own way. I want to, create. It was like what he was saying. So, and that's what, you know, I think it's cool, right? And I think there's a proponent of that as well with me. Like I love listening to these different podcasts about just either, whether it's like bettering yourself or just having different, political ideas. I listen to a podcast about politics, listen to one about just, random learn how to do whatever things. And I think that's, again, kind of ties back into that whole like just deeper conversation stuff. And yeah, I think there's part of me definitely for this. I want to get it out, right? Like I have all these things coming in, all these thoughts boiling for myself, because I've been taking in these different, media, mediums, and like, that's good, but I also want to like kind of, get it out too. Right. And,
Totally.
but anyway, and so I think for me, one of my, driving forces, I guess, for this podcast too is, I don't really know like what this is going to turn into. Don't know if it's going to be big or not, but I think that we live in an age it's pretty amazing what people can do, just in order to make like a living. There's so many just like non-conventional means of people just out there doing things that they're either passionate about and figuring out a way for that to support them and their families. We just have a lot of opportunity in this world to do so many things. And I mean, I think it used to be, if people wanted to do an interview style podcast or two people talking, like you had to have like a studio, you had to have that person come to your studio, and you both had to do it. I mean, you and I are literally in different countries right now.
I know.
And we can still have this friendship. We can still do these interviews. And so anyway, that's really awesome. And I think it's something I just want to be able to take advantage of. And when I think about kind of where I want my life to go, I think this kind of holds true for our generation in general, but I want like freedom of time. And and I love talking about like deep conversations. I love talking about ideas. So why not try to take that, turn it into a podcast, a blog, ebooks, whatever, and see if it goes anywhere. If it goes somewhere where I can either, put that money towards either, doing good into, my future family, or if it really takes off and I can do it full time, I would have like this freedom of time. I think one of the things that drives me a lot is thinking about my future family, which, it's going to be many years probably before that happens. But like, I want to be able to have the option to go to every single extracurricular activity, right? Like I want to be able to just like drop everything and like go to the basketball game, go to the, the plays, the performances, the dance recitals, whatever. I don't know. And I feel like that drives me a lot to want to do something like this. And I've been thinking about it for a while. And so I'm really glad that we're finally, starting something, because to me that would be huge if I could be able to do that someday. And then also just because I think relationships are one of the most important things to invest in ever. And so,
if not the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think there's a strong argument for that. And being post-college, it's way harder making friends. I recently moved to a new city. I haven't really met any people up here other than work buddies. And since we have this ability to still invest in relationships being countries apart, I want to do that. Like, I believe that is a, fulfilling and something that pushes growth. And so that's another big driving factor, I think, for me, in this age where we have, hundreds of Facebook friends who we never talk to. Like, I want people to start realizing that like maybe smaller is better, and like maybe like investing in intentionality is better than what other people think in this facade. So I want to just, start with my own life, maybe, downsizing and starting to invest more intentionally like I was in my college years,
Wow.
And that's driving to me, I think. So
yeah. So good, man. That's awesome.
Anyway.
It's very cool. Man, is that all?
That's all.
Yeah.
It's kind of all over the place. I mean, it's not like the most specific thing. I mean,
no,
I feel like
totally,
a lot of these areas, no, it's okay. a lot of these areas we could go off and have an hour conversation about like one little thing.
Totally.
Which,
Well, I'm writing a few things down because I'm like, oh man, this is good stuff. We got to talk about these
no,
things.
yeah, and that's what's going to be so awesome about this is like we'll be able to do that and be like, okay, cool, like write this one down. We'll do it. We'll do an episode on it.
Yeah.
This one's pretty broad right now. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. No, dude, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, man. I'm stoked. Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if we should like leave it there or like continue on to the why do you do everything, in your life?
Right.
Know why?
Well, yeah, and
Here, you know what? I'm going to tell a story that I think you've heard before.
okay, go for it.
And we'll see if that kind of launches us or closes us. We'll see what it does.
Okay. Go for it.
So there's this rabbi. He's walking along, and he's in Jerusalem. I think that's where the parable comes from. It's from Jerusalem. He's walking along, and he's praying on his way as he goes, and so he's not really paying attention to like where he's walking. And somewhere along the way, he makes a wrong turn, and he's walking, he's praying, he's not really paying attention, and he kind of runs smack dab into this wall, and he's like, oh, this isn't where I was supposed to be. And from up above, on top of the wall, there comes this Roman soldier, and he looks down, and he says, who are you, and what are you doing here? And the rabbi looks up, and he says, yeah, you've heard this one before. And the rabbi looks up, and he says, how much do you get paid every day? And the soldier says, 20 silver pieces a week or something like that. 20 silver pieces a week. And he says in return, he's like, I will pay you double that if you can stand outside my front door and ask me that every day. Who are you? What are you doing here? And I know that we're talking about why, who, what, why, but that's something that's always stuck with me.
Yeah. No, I think that's
something
I think that's a very similar question, right?
Right. Yeah. Who are you? What are you doing here?
And I think, and maybe this will close us out. Otherwise, we'll be going for like another hour. But or we could always just like keep going, and make this into 2 episodes. But the thing I love about that story is it really makes you think. Like if you started your day right, like if you literally had someone sitting out your front door who asked you that question every day, and you really thought about it, it would. I mean, I think that would change a lot of what you do, because you'd be thinking about, why am I doing this, right? And if you have that, like, what am I doing? What am I trying to accomplish? Am I trying to accomplish anything? Am I just floating through trying to entertain myself? You start wrestling with these ideas that might be a little bit uncomfortable, and it might give you pause when you get home from work and have time to maybe work on some kind of side project that might benefit other people or might benefit yourself, or you could watch Netflix, right? Like I, tend to do. And I just think it moves you towards thinking about purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing that people today just generally don't have. Or like, you were talking about before, like with that quote about identity, like manufacturing some identity that may not actually be yours. I think a lot of people don't really have a purpose. They're just doing what other people are doing because, why?
Yeah.
Why
this is what everyone's doing.
Yeah. Why am I pursuing my career? Why am I, having a family? Why am I buying a house? Why am I moving to another city? Whatever the question is. I think so many people just don't know why, don't have that purpose. I feel like I don't really have that purpose right now. I think I'm slowly figuring it out. But I think it's one of those questions that is scary to wrestle with, and so people just don't, And that's one thing that I think I would love to accomplish through this podcast, is getting people to just helping people to think through those thoughts,
Yeah.
Especially our millennial generation that seems to have, you hear nonstop talk about our generation and all of our problems and downfalls and shortcomings. And I don't disagree with all of them necessarily, but I also don't think it's like this hopeless, like, oh, they're just like that, so, oh well. Like I love
Yeah.
to talk about those things and figure them out, and like, so what are we gonna do about them, or what can we do about them?
Yeah.
And that to me gets me stoked, you know. And I hope that we can
Yeah.
help people with that, I guess.
Yeah. I think people of any age could stand to ask themselves that question every day.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like any stage of life
Right.
is helpful. Except maybe when you're a kid, because when you're a kid, all you care about is
Legos.
Legos.
Star Wars Legos.
For me, it was Connects. Did you ever play with Connects?
Connects. Yeah, yeah, my little brother loved those. We had like this roller coaster Connects. It was freaking awesome.
Right.
It
Yeah.
literally did a loop.
Yeah,
Like, how cool is that?
I know. They would come with
Oh, man.
Connects were awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap it up then. And,
Sorry, I don't know how we got there.
No, that's. I would kill to be a kid like in today's world, dude.
Oh my god.
I will walk when I'm in like Walmart or Target. Sometimes I'll walk down the aisle, like the toy aisle, and just be like, "Oh, like I want this so bad. Like right now, I want this. Like
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to, like I hope I can get my kids to love like certain things because I will just want to have an excuse to buy them. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
anyway,
Keep them from the iPads or whatever.
Right.
Just-
like
yeah.
I hope my kids are into Legos, and then I will just, you know, I'm sure my future wife will just like shake her head at Christmas because half of Christmas will be me like getting things for my kids that I'll play with, you know?
Totally. Yeah. And
Um,
crap for yourself.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. So anyway, so to wrap it up, give a shout out to something that, or someone, or, you know, like today we said, like, go listen to this TED Talk video.
Yeah.
Just give something that inspires you, that someone who's listening might want to go hear or look or read or something.
Okay. Oh man, there've been quite a few. This might, lots of people probably know about this. I just discovered it, but it's really stoked me, so I'll just talk about it. The podcast Lore by Aaron Mahnke. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not, no.
Okay. Well, it's on like the top 50 best podcasts for 2016, I think. So again, maybe a ton of people already know, and they're just like, ugh, you just found out about that. But if you haven't heard of Lore, check it out. I'm a huge fan of like dark mysteries and like werewolves, vampires,
Oh, nice.
you know, the Jersey Devil, just all these like legends. And so he kind of in campfire side style will pick a subject or like a legend or an animal that supposedly like roams this part of the world, and he just gives like the lore behind it and how it started and where it came from and how it, like, you know, all the instances leading up to it. And he's super cool. Yeah. And because you wouldn't know that half of these things that we talk about or watch a made for TV movie about are like really real to some people still. You know?
Right.
Yeah. So
Nice.
anyways, I really enjoyed that this week.
Sweet. Cool. I'm going to check that out. And anyone listening, go check out Lore. Who's it by? Aaron
Mahnke.
Aaron Mahnke. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Thanks for talking, bro.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. It's my pleasure too.
I love you.
I love you, man. And with that.
And with that, we bid adieu.
Yeah, thanks for listening.